Andy's here. I'm just going to, I think. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a report out from closed session, and it is that Trustee Beggs recused herself from closed session item 2.2, Conference with Labor Negotiators Employee Organization, YFA, and that will be a standing report out anytime we have YFA negotiations. Okay, at this time, I'd like to move to the approval of the August 9th Board of Trustees regular meeting. Are there any corrections or questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Abe Rojas has moved that we accept the minutes.
Second.
It's seconded by Darren Garrett. Are there any further comments? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Okay, the motion has carried. And let's move to the approval of the minutes of the August 28 Board of Trustees study session. Any questions or comments or additions? If not, a motion to approve is in order.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Trustee Darren Garrett and seconded by? I'll second. Thank you. Trustee Leslie Beggs. All those in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no. Okay, the motion has carried. We'll move on to 3.5, public comments. At this, okay. Did you just stand there for a moment? Did you fill out a card? And did you give it to our stenographer here? That's why I didn't know you filled it out. That's quite all right. We're happy to have you. If you would come up to the podium, and if you would be good enough to tell us not only your name, but the topic. It's a topic that's not on the agenda, is that correct?
Yes, it's an International Heritage Festival.
Great, so give us your name and then tell us.
Well, good evening, my name is Lorraine Bernaldez. I'm a volunteer with the International Heritage Festival. We want to invite all of you on October 7th. We're having here at the MJC East Campus, and we thank you for the use of that. We've been here, this is going to be our 26th year, so we're really quite excited. We're going to have food from all over the world, music, dance. We'll have a kids' world where we'll have passports so they can learn about different cultures in our, and if you just look at just looking in here in this room, it's just amazing, just the heritage, diversity in here. I love it. So yes, you're all invited. It's going to be on October 7th from 11 to 5. There's opening ceremonies with the Yes Company. We're going to do the flags and all that kind of thing. So it's 11 o'clock sharp. We'll be to 5 p.m. and we are all invited.
That's great. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you for coming. We appreciate that. Okay. Now we'll move on to 4.1 Board Policy Committee Report. I happen to be the chair of that. So we had our Policy and Procedure Committee meeting on 2 days ago, on Monday. And I really, truly want to thank our Chancellor, Henry Young, for obtaining and having an attorney who brought a second attorney to really talk about due process, because there's some questions related to the whistleblower policy, but we have other related policies dealing with due process. And I just felt it was a really valuable meeting. And as a result of that, we're going to not cover the whistleblower policy tonight, but because we've asked these attorneys to add some specific due process, even though they felt that it is a part of the policy, it turns out we haven't really been affording people the due process that the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California provide. And so I'm really kind of excited because this is something I've been fighting for a long time. So we'll wait. Next month, hopefully, we'll have the whistleblower policy back. But we will deal with the travel policy and the finance, the one that came from the Finance Committee. So is there a Board Finance Committee report tonight?
Yes, the Board Finance Committee met on September the 5th, and one of the items that was discussed was presented by Teresa, and that was our final budget. So we went over the details of that, but we'll get more into the specifics, obviously, tonight when it comes up on the agenda. And then we just went over the monthly financial reports, which was a brief item. So those are the two items that were discussed, and our next meeting will be October 2nd. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions on that? All right, let's move on to the reports and information items, and we have a distance education presentation, and I see MJC and Columbia coming forth. I don't know if you're going together or one.
Together.
All right,
We like each other. Hang out, play nice. All
all right.
stuff. Oh yeah, the on-off button. Got it. It has an on button right there. So good evening, trustees. We were asked to come and present some information to you about distance education at Modesto Junior College and at Columbia College. And we put the information together and did some slides and some bullets, and tend to move through this thing rather quickly. There's a lot of neat stuff to look at, and we are very proud of our program. So we'll start off just talking about the types of distance education that we offer. We have online courses that are fully online, and then we have a series of hybrid courses that are a blend somewhere between just a little bit of online time, some modules, all the way up to classes that are completely online, except for perhaps a face-to-face meeting or two. Also,
we have telecourses where we offer synchronous nursing classes both at MJC and at Columbia College. And that way we can maximize the benefit of our faculty while utilizing classroom space on both campuses and minimizing travel time for our students. Also, we have web-enhanced courses. All courses are given a Canvas shell. Canvas is our learning management system, and that shell is used to enhance the course, and it's a repository for all of the documents that students need. It provides a gradebook access easy for faculty and students as well, and also a place where they can have online communication. We embed a lot of student support services into these Canvas shells. In the library at MJC, we have librarians that are devoted to divisions, and so they embed themselves actually into the Canvas shell. So if students have, for example, library questions, they can ask the librarian in this virtual space without having to actually come to campus.
so when we think about these courses that we're putting online, we have an approval process and an evaluation process to ensure quality. The approval process is consistent at both colleges, where the faculty members in a discipline will submit what's called a distance education addendum, and it attends to some important questions, in particular describing whether it's a fully online or a hybrid class, the methods of instruction that are going to be used in an online environment to present the same content in the same course, but in a different way. The third bullet is really the most important one, to ensure effective instructor-to-student contact and interaction. How is it that you have this, this distance format and students, is it just email back and forth? Are there live interactive ways for students to interact with their faculty members? And then consistency with the course outline of record. Now, before we put a class into the online environment, the dean has to make sure that the course is approved for online instruction and make sure that the faculty member has been trained for it.
Course evaluation is really an important component of all of our teaching, the same with online teaching. Many of our faculty teach online and face-to-face at the same time. And so if it's their turn to be evaluated, if they happen to be teaching in the online environment, a piece of their evaluation must be that online teaching. And so if Brian is teaching 2 face-to-face classes and 1 online, he will have a visit in the face-to-face modality and an evaluation of the online component as well. And as always, people who do the evaluation are trained. The faculty who are doing the evaluation for the faculty member have also been through the same training, and so they're master online teachers as well.
So as far as the training goes, we have extensive training programs at both colleges, and these two folks work well together. They work consistently, and in fact, last spring there was a presentation by our distance education team, and they talked about some of the ways that they work together. We're using what's called the OEI rubric, the Online Education Initiative rubric for good online instruction. We'll talk about that a little bit more. It is a rigorous and extensive training program. Any faculty members here have been through Mike's training or Melissa's training online, and it was easy and not
Easy?
yeah. See, that's the
one of the most challenging courses I've ever taken in my life.
So it is. It really is one of a very intense program. We've got lots of students who've been and faculty members who've been through that, and these coordinators are available for a Q&A whenever there's issues that arise. I was at a conference with Melissa last week, and we were in Sacramento, and she was taking emails from faculty members who were stuck with an online thing and answering those questions right on the spot.
And also at MJC in our library basement, there's a room that's sort of dedicated to online faculty development. So there's a lot of professional development that's ongoing. As standards change and as different techniques become available, then faculty, they are trained on an ongoing basis.
So part of our role is to ensure quality control of all of our programs across the institution. And we talked about accreditation over and over again. The accreditation guidelines are very thorough in looking at online modalities. You'll see listed here 4 different manuals that are produced by the Accreditation Commission, and within each one of those, I did a little quick word search for distance education, and it was appearing all throughout the document. Almost too prescriptive in some cases, but very, very thorough, and making sure that the online is done as well as it's being done face-to-face. Also through the quality control piece here, we mentioned earlier the online course design rubric. So you can't read it all here, but those rubric sections, they have to make sure before a class goes into this online education initiative exchange, we'll talk about more later, it has to meet all super high level expectations in content presentation and learner engagement and interactive logistics and assessment design. Very thorough, and we're vetting those courses statewide. The OEI rubric, I got this quote out of their document, they call themselves a fusion of best practices. Okay? The goal, trying to make excellent courses. So far across the state, 64 courses have been approved to be part of the exchange through the OEI rubric, and of those, 5 of them are from Columbia College. So it gave me a proud little moment, our little college with almost 10% of the approved courses in the state, and there's 4 more in the approval stream. So
at Modesto Junior College, we've been very deliberately training our faculty in the online modality because this traditionally has been a more at-risk place for students to drop out along the way and to not succeed. And there's been nationally, you can look at statistics, there's some pretty significant retention and success gaps between face-to-face and online courses. So part of the reason we have invested so heavily in the faculty training is to ensure that our students have the best experience possible. To that end, you can see that we have 327 faculty trained, we have 261 online courses, 127 hybrid courses, and if you look at the course outline of record, typically it will tell you which percentage of the course is face-to-face and which percentage of the course will occur in the online environment. And that factors in to be about 24% of all of our offerings.
At Columbia, we've got 93 faculty members who've been trained over time. I found this to be an interesting contrast. We have 50 online courses, and you see the proportion there, but we have only 4 hybrid courses. So what we continue to do as VPIs is to look at data and see what we see and ask those questions and then wonder, well, should we be doing something else different? So this is a learning lesson for myself. You can see that Columbia has 12.5% of all of our offerings are in the online environment as of now. So, all right, now hold on tight because I've got in front of you a series of slides, and this is the clicker, so I get to be the coach. Anybody watching football on Sunday watch the coach's clicker? So sometimes they're going back and forth through a play, kind of like this.
I told him not to make you dizzy, so just be careful.
Okay, so what what I want you to see here is in the top left-hand corner of the graph, it says Columbia, fall 2013. And we have 3 different pictures of our online students. These are students who are only taking online courses with us. In the ethnicity, you can see 17% of the students are Hispanic, Latino, and 68% are white. Okay, and that was in fall of 2013. And as I click forward, you're going to see fall of 2014, 15, 16, and 17. Okay? And really what I wanted you to experience is the idea of this slow motion over time as we watch and I'm sorry about the colors changing. Excel was arguing with me today. But as you look at the 17% of our courses being Hispanic students, and then 23, 21, 22, 26, you can see that over the last 5 years, the proportion of students at Columbia College of a Hispanic background has been increasing. Now, we sat over here earlier and looked at these pictures together and realized that that's because we've added more online courses and we're likely absorbing more students from the Valley, from the MJC pool. If you look at the age group, you're going to see something else dynamic. If you look at the age group, you see about 18% in the 19 or less category in the top right, and then there's the next oldest students, 20 to 24 years old, and then the 25 to 29. So blue, orange, and green around the top right-hand corner. Over time, you're going to see that those continue to grow. And what this tells us is that our enrollments in online are trending younger. So it may have been years ago that more of our students were returning students. They were doing this because they're working and they take an online class on the side. This provides evidence, though, that students are using online courses as more of a component of their everyday training. They'll take some face-to-face classes and they'll also take the online. Although, again, these are the only online students. Gender one's interesting, isn't it? 75% of the students in online courses in fall are female.
Why?
When you look at the ethnic demographic and the age range and then the gender, and you kind of lay those factors over each other, an educated guess is that it is probably young mothers who are trying to do their studies, juggle work and family at the same time.
Is it more of a guess, or do you know?
We don't know exactly.
Well, it's an educated guess. In 2012, I helped co-author the substantial change report for distance ed after that we needed to submit. And when we did an analysis of our demographic at that time, we found a similar pattern, only it's gotten younger, but it was still largely Hispanic, female, but younger, or a little bit older at that time, and now it's getting younger. There may be cultural things at play. There are a lot of factors. It gives us a lot of room for exploration. Can I say definitively that they are young mothers? No, I can't say that.
Yeah, because those numbers just bug me.
Actually, can I offer a different?
Sure, please.
I find it really exciting because what that tells us is that 75% these women who are now accessing education in this online environment have access to education. Whereas if we were saying they could only access it in a face-to-face modality and they couldn't get there, that opportunity is unavailable.
That's fine. My concern is, are our young men falling behind, and why? Especially our minority young men.
I think that's a worthy
question.
Yeah, that's a
There's another factor too, because with some of my grandkids and their friends, they're supplementing classes that they can't get during the regular hours. So they're taking the online classes to supplement those courses. So they may be taking 4 courses in regular classrooms, but they're taking 2 online classes to make up their units. And so they can do it at their own time and their own leisure in accordance with the classes that are offered. And this is mainly at the 4-year institution, so I'm assuming that it's probably the same rhetoric that's going on here.
So I do have to share one personal thing. At lunch today, I took my 16-year-old daughter out to lunch because she had a minimum day and I was in town. And we were talking about these pictures and this data set, and I was showing her some of the cool stuff. And she thought to herself, well, maybe it's that the young women feel more empowered and feel that they can succeed more in the independent learning environment of an online class. And I thought, to the young men versus young women thing, I was like, well, that's an interesting perspective for my little 16-year-old. So anyway, I was proud. Oh, the other thing to see in this picture is that we've really increased our dual enrollment students at the high school. So there's several charter schools in our area, and those students are taking like 1 or 2 online classes while taking the rest of their classes face-to-face, and that does account for the upper right corner there, the 24%, some of the students there from the charter school. So MJC, trends.
So before we start clicking around the color wheel, let me just offer you some kind of a trajectory of our unduplicated headcount enrollment. This comes from our 2017 MJ Fact Book, which you can find on our data dashboard. In fall 2009, 7,631 students were enrolled in online education. In 2012, 7,357. We actually declined a little bit. In 2014, 10,549. In 2016, 11,590. So in just a few short years, this unduplicated head count of students, that many students have access to education in ways. And one thing that's really interesting about the online environment, students shop now. They're no longer brand loyal. They don't need to be a pirate through and through in ways that people used to. So if they're wanting an online class, they could be anywhere in the United States searching for an online class. And if we have one open at MJC, they'll take it. If they have one open at Columbia, they'll take it. Our students aren't necessarily, that are in these classes, are not necessarily local. And so it provides a really interesting, it makes the question that you're asking even more complex. So to me, it opens a lot of room for dialogue about who are these students and how can we, maybe close some of those equity gaps that you brought to light. So let's go ahead and click through the color wheels.
Again, with the ethnicity, you'll see the white students on the left, the 48% in 2013, and then 31% is the blue on the right. And just watch over time how that is changing significantly, right? So the proportion at MJC that are taking online classes, the Hispanic portion is continuing to grow. You also watch the age group for a second, you'll see that over time, that's also trending younger, and the female-male split is approximately the same.
And yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so moving ahead, overall is a proportion of our offerings where we've been declining in our face-to-face classes and increasing in our online offerings. About 15% of the FTS at Columbia College this fall is going to be online, up from 10% 5 years ago.
And at MJC, you can also see, and this is a common trend, it's not just a local problem. You can see that our full-time face-to-face trend is down to 74.8, but our online is up quite significantly. As you can see, I mentioned before, it's about a quarter of our
Yeah, and these are percentages of the whole, so as one goes up, the other one has to go down.
Right.
So it doesn't indicate an actual decline. Success rates have also been rising. We put a bunch of online stuff out there, but are students succeeding in it? And the answer is yes. You see that at Columbia College that distance education rates have stayed about the same. We had a peak in 2014, 63-64%. Face-to-face classes, you can see an increasing trend in success there. Statewide, it's about 63% of the students are succeeding in distance education versus 72% on a face-to-face.
And at MJC, you can see across the trends that our success rates have significantly improved and are very close to our face-to-face success rates. And you can see in the bottom the statewide percentages.
Yeah, and both colleges exceed the state average for online success rates. This graph shows us the number of students, the percent of students who are only taking online classes with us. So MJC is, about 9%. Columbia is up to almost 10% of the students only enrolled at the institution as an online student. And then the next thing coming down the line is the OEI exchange. And so this is, basic framework is a student goes to enroll in a class at, let's say, MJC, and they find that that class is full, but there's a course somewhere else in the state that's a part of the OEI exchange that has available seats. That's going to appear as an option on the MJC student, and they can take the course elsewhere. I like to think of the other direction. Columbia College is part of the OEI consortium soon, and we're going to put courses out there. So students at impacted colleges in other areas are going to be able to, when their seats run out locally, they're going to be able to jump into a Columbia College course and easily transition into it. We'll be joining that consortium effective in the spring, and we should give you a report on that soon.
So some considerations, go ahead and click them all up. As we look at some of the possibilities for the colleges, and always keeping in mind that our goal is providing as much access to education as possible, measured, careful expansion is the way to go, but we do have a lot of potentiality in the online environment. And so that is an active conversation amongst the deans and also the deans within their division to faculty. Preserving the academic integrity of the programs, all of the training things that we spoke about earlier in the evaluation process is our way in which we do preserve the academic integrity and ensure quality control. There are a lot of questions that arise, and really the way we approach these questions and these conversations, it's all governed by these 6 success factors. We've had a lot of conversation on both campuses about how we engage our students, how we make them feel like this is their home, get them connected, all of these things. And as we approach the discussion about DE, we take into account how it's going to help our students succeed.
So it's a matter of putting out enough to be what's needed and not overdoing it and making sure that it's the right kinds of things. Very hard questions, but we continue to wrestle with them and trying to do that measured expansion. Any questions or comments?
I have a question for Jennifer. When you first started, can you go back like to the second page?
This presentation.
And there were, you said in the library there were different sections for different divisions.
Different librarians are dedicated.
Right, yeah.
Assigned to divisions.
So if an instructor is in a particular division, would they go to that and say, okay, I want to teach a class online? Is that where they would go, or would?
Well, actually, course shells are automatically generated. So the student support that I was mentioning and using library as an example, those librarians work with particular, when I was dean of VBSS, Iris Carroll was our librarian. And so whether it was a face-to-face class or an online class, our faculty within that division could go to her and ask for library support for the students. Everything from video guides to research tips and all of that kind of stuff. She kind of has her own little catchy Ask Iris corner. You know, it's like a little thing in the paper.
Right,
you know, she has it in the course shells. The students really love it. And it's almost like having a co-teacher in the class, because when it comes to those research assignments and to those kinds of things, it's very, very helpful.
Good, thank you.
I have a question. I'm assuming you measure progress by tests. Are those teacher-made tests, or are they standardized tests, or how does that work?
Depends on the area, depends on the instructor's choices. The instructor's in charge of assessing the students, and some like to use external exams, and some use locally made tests. Sometimes there's an on-campus meeting to have a proctored test, face-to-face, and sometimes we can send students to another college to go into a proctored environment in another college. If they happen to live in the desert somewhere, they can just go locally.
How do you measure the validity of those tests?
Well, you know, that's a hard, big question, but we trust that the faculty members are the content experts in their area and are determining whether the students know the course outline of record or not. Our entire system is built that way. The faculty member knows what they need to know and tells us, did they get an A, B, C, D, or F? That's the faculty member's job.
Much of the assessment is also done through other kinds of portfolio learning or project learning or things like that, in combination with maybe the more traditional quizzes and testing. And so there's a lot of approaches to evaluation of student learning. But the question of validity, not just of the testing, but knowing who your students are and that kind of thing, that kind of sprung a lot of what's happening in the online environment about frequent and regular contact. Know who your students are, make sure they are who they are. There's a lot of requirements, and the OEI helps us with that.
Oh, thank you.
I want to thank the colleges for developing and growing online. It increases accessibility for the community, but at the same time, I can't help but realize that in our community, we have families with no access to the internet or the ability to afford a computer. We have folks who are still living on the other side of the digital divide. So we certainly hope that internet access companies would be able to step in and help, because this would be a dynamic change in the equation of access to higher ed in outlying communities. Additionally, I would like to see in the future that we could perhaps add interactive televised video to our instructional array, because millennials tend to be heavy on video and visuals, and so that might be a good modality to consider for our distance ed in the future.
We do have some instructors that are doing that even in a web-enhanced class. We have students that are enrolled in a child development class at Columbia College, and she Skypes in every week from Chico and participates in class discussions, does her stuff there locally, and I think came in for the final exam or the end of semester get-together. Thank you for the suggestions. We'll keep doing that. All right, we're done.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm not sure, Brian, if you want to stay up here or not, because next we're going to have some accreditation updates, and that will be with you and with Dr. Jill Stearns. And you decide who goes first, or if you...
So good evening. To save some costs to the college, James took a meeting in Sacramento this evening so that we didn't have to travel to LA to meet with our team from the Center of Urban Education. So we are getting close to our visit. It is right around the corner. We had our pre-visit last week, and Dr. Lori Adrian, who is our team chair, is also serving as the lead chair for the visit. And so we talked about what the visit to Central Services will look like. It will be on Monday. It's going to start bright and early at 8 a.m. And they're going to start with Chancellor Yang. And then they will only be at Central Services until 11. So that visit is going to be very brief. It is Monday, October 1st from 8 to 11. Other opportunities for broad engagement, we have 2 open forums that are scheduled. We tried desperately to get one on West Campus, and our classrooms are full. And so that's good news, but that means that both of our open forums are going to be on East Campus. The first will be at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, and that one will be in the Little Theater. Then on Wednesday at noon, we'll actually be in the Large Theater in the Performing and Media Arts Center. So, and then our exit interview is scheduled for Thursday at 2. As you know, it will be very brief. It will be a statement that's read by the team chair. It will not have the information that we really would like to glean from the team as they are exiting, but it will be in accordance with the process. Any questions?
Do you have a timeline for the trustee meetings on Tuesday, October 2nd? Or you will get that to us?
They will be on Monday.
Oh, it's...
Oh, Monday's the 2nd. Somebody gave me a wrong date behind.
So Central Services, then trustees, or...
Well, that's the trustees are considered part of that. Yes. So during that 3 hours, there will be all kinds of things scheduled.
Okay, because we'd been given a date, but not a time frame. So you're saying 8 to 11 for trustees, sometime in there.
Yes. Yes, and I know that early is not always preferred, so that's why we were starting with the chancellor. We let him volunteer to be bright and early.
Thank you, Henry.
So good evening again. As mentioned, we are quickly approaching our visit as well. It's the same days. It's going to have the same times for the trustee visits or the trustee conversations. We're going to have our open forums on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, and then also on Wednesday afternoon at, I think, 3 o'clock. And those are going to be held in the Dogwood Forum with our exit interview on Thursday. Our team chair was here on August 31st, and we had a really nice visit. He came through. They picked a hotel to be at in town for the team hotel. They came to campus, and we had a nice tour together. He met with our college council, and just shared his vision for what's coming. And it really left us very much looking forward to the visit, and I think it's going to be a very successful event, and look forward to seeing some of you at that time. Questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And as long as you're still sitting out there, Jill, we'll move to the association reports, starting with the Student Senate activity reports, and Jill is going to be reporting for Cindy Lopez, MJC.
Yes, so thank you. And while I always appreciate the opportunity to get to share with you, I feel a lot of pressure because Cindy just is fantastic and brings such great energy to this. So on behalf of Cindy, she notes, I was recently told that I will not be able to attend the board meeting tonight due to another event I need to attend to. So here's my board meeting report. I want to sincerely apologize for my absence this evening. I'm attending an ASMJC meeting, but here are some of the amazing progress that ASMJC has made since the semester started. We hosted Welcome Week the first 3 days of school, and we were able to feed 1,200 students over the 3 days. Additionally, there were multiple activities, and ASMJC met with students. On Monday, we held our Remembrance Day, and this was our way of remembering the attacks of September 11. 2,996 flags were placed in the East Campus Quad to represent those lost on that day. We also held a brief ceremony that was greatly attended. Today and tomorrow, we have Club Rush, where students are surrounded by many clubs excited to receive new members. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Well, thank you, Jill. Do we have a report from Columbia College students?
I don't see Aaron, and he did not communicate with me.
Okay, thank you for that information, Angie. Let's move to the Academic Senate activity reports. I know, I'm not sure who I'm looking for, so are there two, do we? All right, so you guys, ladies first, all right.
Hello, it's my pleasure to be at my first board meeting. My name is Erin Nagley. I am the new Academic Senate President for Columbia College, and I also teach biology. And my report to you this evening, let me put my notes, is a story of collaborative transformation. And like any good story, it involves lots of acronyms. So let me get started with the first one. And the first acronym is AWE, which stands for Academic Wellness Educators, which is a long-standing committee for Columbia College that was started before I joined the ranks 6 years ago. But the focus and goal of that committee was a place to enable student success. And in that, administrators and faculty and classified staff worked together to generate ideas to implement on campus. And a lot of that had to do with student success outside of the classroom. How do we give the support we know students need in order to be successful with their coursework? And over the past couple of years, with the state initiatives, a lot of that work has been transferred over to what is now our Student Success Council, with this focus on students outside the classroom. We've had a lot of success with that on our campus, and there are lots of initiatives, which I presume you've heard about. So last spring, that kind of left us with this idea of like, well, what's the future of AWE? And now let me fast forward you to August, where our faculty met for our retreat at Baker Station, which was a lovely day, and we spent 6 hours together talking about what's next for us as faculty and where are our opportunities. And the place where we feel like we could use the most growth is in professional development for teaching and learning, really focusing on our campus about intentionally improving our practice as teachers in the classroom with the eye of improving student learning. And it just hasn't been happening in a really organized fashion on our campus. So as we're talking in the afternoon, we're tossing ideas around, and this idea of teaching and learning comes around, but that wasn't quite it, because there's also this feeling of like, we'd like to develop more community on our campus. collaboration cohorts. And so we're like, ooh, teaching and learning and community. And somebody yells out, TLC! And at that very moment, I am not kidding, lightning struck and the thunder rolled, and we all applauded and decided that must be the thing that's next for us. So we came back from the retreat and had great conversations with Brian Sanders and Angie, and they said, that sounds great. Let's take AWE and transform it into this professional development cohort for faculty, and we've also we believe in making the table big at Columbia, so we've also involved our administrators and classified staff. And we had our first meeting last Friday, and it was great. And the two key things I want you to take away from that are faculty and staff are really excited about this idea of professional development, of how to make our coursework better, how to really pull in research data and talk about how do we make the learning experience better for our students. And we really feel supported by the administration. And that movement from AWE to TLC was really collaborative with Brian and Angie and Melissa and Brandon, and they all showed up to our meeting. And the first question that was thrown out by our co-facilitators was, what do you bring to the community? And I was impressed that both Angie and Melissa and Brandon and our deans talked about what I bring to this community is the ability to make good things happen on campus. And we really feel that, and thank you. And it's a thrill to have this new collaborative event happening on our campus. That's my report. And Exhibit A, if you're interested, I also have our September-October calendar if you would like to see our TLC events. So.
Thank you, Dr. Nagley. I certainly hope that lightning doesn't strike very many times.
It didn't strike the barn, it struck, up the hill. I'm sure a tree and started another fire, but.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you. It sounds like things are really happening great at Columbia, and thank you to you, Angie, also.
And thank you for coming down.
Sure.
Appreciate that. And we'll be up your way next month.
Great,
So.
we'll be ready.
Okay. Curtis.
Good evening.
Nice shirt.
Thank you. First of all, I want to apologize for not being here the last two times. I have no great excuse except I was on vacation. I went and visited my family in Cuba for 3 weeks.
Your timing was good.
Yes, my timing was excellent. I hear the tunnels across this river in Havana are literally flooded. They're for automobiles, and electricity has still not returned to a lot of places. Since this is my first meeting, so good evening, trustees, and also this is my first meeting with our new chancellor. I have already met with him. He was kind enough also to come to campus to do the adjunct faculty orientation, so welcome on board. And my report is relatively short. The Academic Senate is ready to start working on a lot of initiatives that we've been setting up over the last 3 years, specifically guided pathways. We're continuing with acceleration and with other initiatives whose goal is to improve student success. We've already started trying to get everything in place because the things we're attempting to do sound wonderful, but they require organization, they require leadership, they require communication. So in order to start that in the semester in that direction, our first Academic Senate meeting, which usually is a working retreat, was held here at the MSR Center. And what we did is that I pedantically named the session Moving Forward, Building Bridges and Trust in an Age of Disbelief. Perhaps I put / distrust. And we invited all the administrators at MJC to break bread with us during the retreat. And I have to say, for me, it was a success. We split the administrators across all tables, and we discussed both what is good at the institution, and then we discussed not what's bad at the institution, but what would we require at the institution to make a large initiative, such as guided pathways, work at the institution. Because this is a major effort. And I am hoping that the better the communication, the smoother the path. I suspect there'll be a few bumps on the road, there always is. And communication to me has always been key to understanding, or at least being able to understand what other people are talking. So I want to thank the administration for being there and showing up in force and engaging us. The food was good. I'm sorry, we usually get food from Chipotle, which is plentiful and delicious, especially at that time. And that's it. That's my report. Do you have any questions? Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Curtis. Now we'll move on to the Leadership Team Advisory Council, LTAC. Okay.
Good evening. I'm the treasurer for LTAC. Klaus apologizes for not being here tonight, and hopefully he'll be there next week or next month at Columbia. The Leadership Team Advisory Council is soliciting feedback right now from its membership regarding its evaluation survey process. Right now, we've asked for improvement on that evaluation. We've been receiving some helpful suggestions, and hopefully we'll be working with our members to evaluate those survey information and to put together an evaluation that they're more comfortable with. We've also deposited all the checks for the dues that have been received in for LTAC, and currently we have a little over $4,000 in our account. And we've also received thank you note recently from our scholarship recipients. That's our report out this evening. Any questions?
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Jim Salmon, YFA.
Thank you very much. I'm Jim Solon, president of the Yosemite Faculty Association. So we participated with the instruction office on the new faculty orientation at MJC, and there seemed to be a theme of hydration. The MJC Foundation provided mugs for the new faculty. We provided mugs for the new faculty, and the instruction office provided tumblers. So apparently we want them, and the tumblers had a straw. So apparently they're supposed to be double-fisted and drinking out of the tumbler. So, but it was very well attended, and I think it was very well prepared and well organized. So, we also had we participated with the administration and the instruction office and the Senate and the adjunct faculty orientation. I was particularly impressed with not only the turnout for the adjunct faculty orientation, because I think it's larger than I've ever seen it, but it was wonderful to see our chancellor there and then to speak and talk about how you've worked as an adjunct for 8 years. And what I found particularly wonderful about that is the next day at MJC's Institute Day, I was stopped by probably at least 3 different faculty who said, I never expected to see the chancellor there. And they just thought that was fantastic. So I really commend you for coming and sharing that. And also I thought it was excellent to have 2 trustees there, especially one who's been a part-time faculty member. So thank you for that. YFA had its first executive board meeting of the fall semester. We have a couple new people on our exec board. I mentioned, I think last spring, Eric Andel is our new vice president and / grievance officer for Columbia College. He's done fantastic work this summer for us. And then Craig Johnston was added as the Columbia at-large / college council representative. And so it's great to have some new folks on the exec board. I think we're going to work very well together. This coming Wednesday will be our first YFA representative council of the fall semester. And we're particularly excited because it's the first time, I think in quite a while, that we have a full Columbia contingency. And so there's been a lot of great enthusiasm by faculty. I was just at the Columbia Faculty Senate meeting last Friday, and there seems to be a lot of good energy going on. So it's good to see that. And then the final thing I wanted to report on tonight is that we have this coming Friday, the YFA is having a general faculty retreat in Oakdale at the community center. Now, I'm particularly excited about this because I've been an employee of the district since 1999. I've attended most of the general faculty meetings, and we probably had about 20, 25, maybe 30 people who would show up. And then as YFA president for the last couple of years, I got kind of the same response. And at Columbia, I might get 5 to 10 if I was lucky. This Friday, we are feeding lunch, so maybe this will help in the process, but we have 179 confirmed faculty coming to the meeting on Friday. Most of them are full-time. And then I also had about another 15 to 17 who said they can't come because of scheduling issues, but they would have wanted to come. So I think we would have gotten close to 200 had they been able to join us. So it's just exciting to see that there's a lot of faculty participation, a lot of faculty unity, and so I'm just really pleased with how things are going. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's great. We appreciate your report. And now we'll move to CSEA Debbie Partridge.
Good evening, board members. I thought my report was short, but I've been writing notes since I got here. So I guess I did more than I thought I did. I want to thank Jill Stearns for the classified breakfast. It's something that we look forward to every year. And I'd like to thank Leslie and Ann for attending. And I think those were the only board members who attended. Next year, come on out. It's great omelets, and it's a very upbeat, nice way to start the fall semester. I attended the scholarship reception for MJC. Columbia College has their reception in the spring, and MJC has theirs in the fall. I was not able to attend the spring one for Columbia, but our chapter with our local dues, we give 3 scholarships a year, 1 for Columbia and 2 for MJC. So it's always nice to go to that event and see who we're helping, and it's a fun event. I had a pre-accreditation meeting with Dr. Adrian and Dr. Rodriguez. The main point I got out of it is that they're here to help us, not to hurt us. And so I think that was the main message they were trying to share, is that they want to help us make MJC better, which I think is, I guess, pretty good already, but we can always, there's always room for improvement. I have all the MJC council, CSEA appointment council. For all the MJC councils, I have all the CSEA appointments made. I still have 1 council at Columbia that I'm looking for 2 representatives. It's a brand new council, institutional effectiveness. So I'm still requesting people to volunteer for that. And let's see, CSEA has conducted their survey to open negotiations. We're a little bit behind, but we're working with the district to put our deadline back a little bit, but that's going to move forward fine. And I did meet with Chancellor Young. I appreciate your time. Was able to share some concerns, and very collaborative. I'm glad you're here. I think things are going to be great. And the last thing is I do only have 1 student story from the first week of school, and I'm disappointed, but I think it's a victory for MJC because I did not find very many students who were lost, and I think it was a huge effort by the classified professionals, the faculty, and the administration with tents up everywhere. Students knew where to go to get help. So, but that left poor me wandering around trying to find somebody to help. But, but I will say that, 100+ degree days, and every tent I walked by, the staff and the administrators who were there were smiling. There were people going around bringing bottled water because it was pretty hot. But I think that's a great yay for MJC, so students aren't wandering on campus wondering where'd I go to find help. But I did walk by 1 tent where a staff member was telling a student how to get to a different building. It was like, go this way and go that way. I said, you know what, I'm heading that way, come with me. And her name was Sabrina, bright face, and she was late, so she had to rush because her Uber car got to her house too late. I said, you know what? You now can ride the bus for free. And so I told her, you need to go get your sticker from ASMJC in the Student Center after class, because we're like running to get to her class. And she was thrilled to find out that now MJC students can ride the city bus free. And so that's a great new, and I believe that's James Todd's work. And I believe that's my report. Any questions?
Okay, appreciate that. Next, we'll move to activities and announcements, 5.4, and we'll begin with Modesto Junior College. Jill?
Thank you. So we have a full fall list of activities happening. I'm going to ask that you take a look at those, and I want to recognize our 1,123 students who were named to the Dean's List for spring of 2017. They achieved a GPA of 3.5 or higher, and so we extend our congratulations to them very formally. And I'd like to recognize our distinguished classified staff. This year we recognized 4 individuals for their outstanding service, and that was Bridget James, Marianne Rogers, Megan Lee, and Melissa Clark. And it is always so fun. Those are a surprise, and it's just delightful to see not only how overjoyed the recipients are, but their peers who work with them. It's just a fantastic opportunity to celebrate the work of our classified professionals on campus. And I just want to add, in Cindy's report, she really underplayed how powerful the experience that ASMJC provided on Monday in remembrance of 9/11 really was. And to have those flags on display all day, and they had beautiful photos and a very brief but poignant ceremony to remember the lives who were lost on that day. And our veteran students were there in force, and some of our veteran employees. And it was just a wonderful time of remembrance and a way to honor a day that has been so impactful. And to hear the student senator who was the leader who planned the event talk about being a toddler when it occurred. And yet it was powerful enough that this was the project she chose, was really meaningful. And so great job, ASMJC.
Great, thank you. Are you doing anything for Constitution Day at MJC?
You know, we are, and I didn't bring my email, and I wish I would have. There are a variety of events, and the ASMJC sent their list out today, and also Ryan Guy, our forensics coach, we're hosting a demonstration debate. Is that the right term, Jim? Our team is going to debate First Amendment, free speech. Yes.
That's great. All right, Angie, what's going on up the hill?
Well, Aaron talked about teaching and learning and all of the exciting discussions going on. On Flex Day, the theme of the day was SLO data analysis. And so I stopped in for part of the day on the session, and it's just, it does your heart good. They sound a little crazy. To see the faculty and a few administrators engaging in what those assessments mean. And we had faculty in different disciplines sitting at tables, looking at their data and talking about what it might mean. And, we had a similar session in the spring, but that was how do you get the data into eLumen so that you are able to generate and do some analysis, and to see how far the faculty had come in just that one semester since we implemented eLumen was fabulous. I like to watch and listen in on those discussions because it focuses on our student success. What can we do to better improve? So that was just fabulous. I do have a correction to item number 2. In my report, the Columbia College volleyball season. It did indeed kick off, but it didn't kick off with a game against our sister college. It kicked off with us participating in the MJC tournament. I was corrected on that, so I just misunderstood the information I got. So our first home game is this Friday. Yay. And then, of course, these next couple of weeks are just going to be crazy busy leading up to our accreditation visit. Next week is the schedule is just unbelievable with activities and meetings and things. But Claim Jumper Day is always a fabulous day. We are inundated with high school students, and everyone has fun that day because we get to share about the college. They get to talk to faculty about their programs, see what support programs we have. And like, so we're looking forward to having, 550 is what we're expecting. But last year we had about 800 because we have schools outside of our service area call us to ask if they can bring buses of students up. So we had, I think, 2 schools from the Valley, from a neighboring colleges district, wanted to participate last year. So we're ready for them.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. On subject 5.6, I have the honor of reminding some of you, and if not, informing some of you that although Henry has been with us since the 1st of July, we're going to have a welcome reception for him at Columbia College on East Campus and West Campus. We wanted to wait until all of faculty was back, and we felt we better not do it the first 2 weeks of school because of all the things. The September 20th will be the reception for Henry at Columbia, and then Thursday, September 21st at 2 p.m. On East Campus, and then Friday, September 22nd on West Campus in the college break room, the district break room. The MJC ones are both at 2 p.m. Each will be 1 hour long. So if you haven't had a chance to talk to Chancellor Young, this would be an opportunity. But those of you who have people under you, please invite them, because this is a real opportunity to get to shake hands and say hello to the leader of our district. And I just think it's a really wonderful opportunity. I know Henry would enjoy meeting as many people as can come. So we look forward to that. And now we'll move to 5.7, which is Chancellor Young's time to give us some updates.
Thank you. One of the things that I mentioned that I would like to do is to reach out to the community and to meet people in the community. So I have done that. I want to thank President Fairchild for arranging for me to meet with individuals from the workforce training agencies in Sonora. I was able to visit the Motherlode Job Training Center. I was very impressed with the work that they do to train individuals for employment. And I also visited an innovation lab that uses an old mental hospital, an old mental hospital as a shared collaborative among various institutions and a nonprofit organization to find solutions at either improving education or improving people's lives. I thought, what a great project, up in Sonora, and I wanted to be sure that I share that with you. I also want to report that during the visit, the folks from the workforce were willing to work together with Columbia College to explore the possibility if the college could offer non-credit classes downtown. So we hope that that would go forward, as well as looking for other opportunities of distance ed via ITV. Additionally, I've also met with the superintendent of Waterford. I was really thrilled to meet with him and get an update on the milestone that the Waterford district has accomplished in such a short time. And to look at the accomplishment of that community, we hope that the students in Waterford would be able to continue and that we would be able to serve them. I think all of you are aware that last week the federal government decided to end and phase out the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, better known by the acronym DACA. This program, enacted by the Obama administration, has given coverage to some 800,000 immigrants, including some students at MJC and Columbia College. President Trump has called on Congress to act and create legislation that will provide a solution on this important immigration issue by March 5th of next year. The Yosemite Community College District urges our federal legislators in Congress to work collaboratively to identify and create a clear path and just pathway to immigration reform. Our community, located in the heartland of California, is diverse and richly multicultural. We welcome all individuals, all who desire to learn and to improve their lives, to enroll at our colleges. We serve all who enter through our doors with compassion and humanity. As a district, we are uniquely blessed and enriched by the talents and contributions of all our students and employees, regardless of their ethnicity, national origins, or immigration status. We welcome all and serve all. We adhere to the law of this nation, and our institutions are operated according to the Ed Code. As such, we do not release personal data to any inquiry on our students or employees unless under legal mandates. So we urge our students and the community to continue their pursuit of higher education and to let Modesto Junior College and Columbia College to continue to serve them. Do not let the announcement discourage you from your educational goals. Supportive services are available at both colleges to inform and to update the students. Let us continue to serve you and help you achieve your educational goals. Again, we welcome all and serve all. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Wong. Excuse me, Young, and it's Chancellor. We have grants activity update next. We've been provided with information. Are there any questions regarding the grants report? Okay, let's move on then to the consent agenda item. Do we have any additions or changes? Okay, and I don't believe anyone needs to recuse themselves. Anybody want to pull? Okay, Don. Oh, I didn't see your husband's name on that. Am I wrong on that? I looked, I did, okay, then you don't have to. All right, it's been moved by Don Viss to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Seconded by Darren. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Okay, the motion has carried.
Move on. I'd like to recognize the retirees.
Okay, please.
Janet Constable, 9 years. Don DeMare, 31 years. Jeff Fitzwater, 13.5 years. Diane Warren, 13 years.
Yeah. And Abe, I'm sorry, I know you do that. I should have, I'm sorry. But thank you for adding that. All right, so then we're up to 7.1. These are action item discussions, and it's the student health fee increase. And is someone, we've been provided information, both student bodies at both colleges have asked us to do this, to provide more health services for our students. Is there someone who's designated to discuss it, or I don't know? Okay, it's been moved by Abe Rojas that we accept the staff recommendation to increase student health fees by $2. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Lynn Martin. Any discussion, questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The motion has carried. All right, 7.2, the Yosemite Community College District final budget. And I give this to Teresa.
Thanks, Argon. Well, good evening. Tonight, I will present the final budget. In June, we brought to you the tentative budget, and at that time, we shared that we would be closing the books, receiving the final information from the state, and then presenting the board tonight with the final budget. So you have in your packets and your board docs both the presentation and the budget document. And so once we walk through that, if there are any questions, which there probably will be, I can entertain those from either document. As I share each time I present to the board and to our public, we do have a web page that we, as soon as this board meeting is over and assuming you adopt the budget, then we will post the most current budget information on the web page for fiscal services. We try to track all the presentations that I make or that our staff makes so that you can go through and look for questions that you might have. But as always, if you have questions after we go through this tonight, please don't hesitate to call me or my staff. So on to the 17-18 budget. It didn't change dramatically from the June presentation. In fact, it was adopted, the state budget was adopted on time and signed by the governor on June 27th. The total state expenditures are $122.5 billion, and it's a $3.3 billion increase over the last 3 years for the K-14 system. Many times in the state budget, they refer to K-14, and of course we know community colleges are that 13 and 14. Prop 98, the funds that we share with the K-12 system are at $74.5 billion, and that's of the state budget. In the state budget, community colleges received, and we were very thrilled to receive this, $183.6 million to support increases to college operations. Over the last several years, we've discussed all the cuts to community colleges. In the last 2 years, the state has recognized that and allocated funds to community colleges. However, the state, while they are not mandates and they are not tied to any compliance items like many of our categoricals, the state is really pushing and recommending that districts recognize increases in employee benefits, facility costs, long-term scheduled maintenance, deferred maintenance, professional development. The state is also looking at converting, as it has done for years and years in our system, part-time faculty to full-time, and then for other general expenses. The employee benefits, we have talked over the last several months, if not the last couple of years, the increases to PERS and STRS, our retirement systems. And so we've all been encouraged statewide to address those, to begin planning, and to look at some of these one-time or these ongoing base funds as helping to offset those dramatic increases we'll be seeing over the next several years. The general fund final budget also includes a cost of living adjustment for the second, almost third year in a row. While modest, we're very pleased to see that because you will recall we went 5 years without any cost of living adjustments in our community college budgets. There's a 1% allocation statewide for growth. That's $57.8 million. And then there's a $31.7 million allocation to be allocated on a one-time basis for the RDA, the Redevelopment Agency revenue. A few years back, 5 years ago, redevelopment agencies were liquidated. We all received tax increment from those agencies. And so there was a shortfall as we had recognized not only in our system, but other governmental entities. So the state has allocated, once again, some one-time money to help offset those deficits. And then, as you've heard this evening in different presentations, there's $150 million for guided pathways to support our student success programs. Okay. In community colleges, we are funded for our full-time equivalent students, and you'll see on this slide what the funding rate is in the new budget. For credit FTEs, it's $5,072, non-credit $3,050, and then our college prep, career development FTEs are now up to the credit rate. I believe I reported on that previously. Those new, that new category of FTEs was funded at a lower rate, and last year the state recognized that they should be funded at the credit rate. There's $76.9 million for deferred maintenance, and it's also tied in with instructional equipment. We call that IELM funds. Our share this year is $1.1 million. And we will be allocating that to the colleges and to some of our scheduled maintenance needs. Just as a point of reference, the needs, the top priorities just for scheduled maintenance at this point in time are well over $3.3 million in our priorities that we send to the state. And also the college IELM needs are well over the $1 million that we see in our total allocation. There's $46.5 million in Prop 39, that's the Clean Energy Jobs Act. And what our district has been doing is putting much of that money into lighting retrofit. We will be eligible for up to $674,000 this year. On to the CalSTRS rate increases. You can see the rate increases 8.88% to 19.1% in 2021. Our board subcommittee, finance subcommittee, has been addressing that with staff. We really appreciate that. 3 of our board members serve on that, Abe Rojas, Don Viss, and Darren Gerhardt, and we really appreciate the time that you're taking to work with staff to help identify ongoing funds to meet these needs. We're not there yet, but we have been setting aside monies in a trust for that purpose, and then you'll see as we walk through the budget this year, or the final actual expenditures this year, we have added a little bit more into the reserve to address what will be by 2021 a $10 million need. This slide shows us the CalPERS increases and the magnitude of that just in a couple of years. And we did open up a trust fund. We put some of the one-time money from the prior year into that fund. We currently have about $6 million to address this ongoing increase. Now, for our district, the COLA of 1.56% is about $1.4 million to us. While there is a 1% growth in the system, we are not planning in our district at our 2 colleges on earning that growth. Should we grow, I'll discuss the FTESs and stability in a moment, but should we grow, we will be eligible up to about 1%. It varies district to district, but we will have about 1%. And I did note at the bottom, we could generate an additional $930,000 if our colleges were to grow the 1%. The base increase for us is $2.6 million, which again is a welcomed addition to our very tight budgets. The costs in our budget for 17-18, the new ongoing costs, the movement on the salary schedules for step and column, you can see that's over, well, nearly $800,000. Salary adjustments, we did settle, the district did settle with the classified bargaining unit and with the leadership meet and confer group for a 2% salary increase, and that will cost $670,000 approximately. We also agreed, the district, the board agreed to cover the cost of the increased benefits for the currently paid plan. And for the 2 groups that did agree to that, that will be about $137,000. And then you see the PERS and STRS increases. We had a prior year carryover after we closed the books, coming from all of the sites. There was about $1.5 million. And so we allocated that based on the district's allocation model, with, you can see Modesto's share, Columbia's share, and the central office share. The two colleges will work with their budget committees on determining where those funds will go, and then we will work in central services with the chancellor as to where are the greatest needs for the central office. We know there's many needs in information technology. That seems to be an ongoing cost increase for all of the districts, not just YCCD. So we'll be looking at all those priorities, but also facilities. We know our facilities, even though we get scheduled maintenance, deferred maintenance money, we need to be putting money aside to address the future needs of all these beautiful, gorgeous facilities, as well as our older ones that probably need more help. So we will be about that task in the central office. We're probably going to hold off on ours until we see where we are with our full-time equivalent students and move into the year a little bit further before we make any decisions with that money. This is a whole host of our categorical programs. You won't see these line itemed in the budget, but what we do record is every month as the state allocates money to these categorical programs, then we post those back out to the colleges and to the budgets that have been set up for these purposes. And these are just, these are the major categoricals. There may be a few other smaller ones, but most of these categoricals are split between the colleges based on many times FTESs and other variables. You've heard us talk about the FON, the full-time obligation number. What this chart shows us is how we have tracked with the FON. The state requires all community colleges to have a certain number of full-time faculty contracted. And so you can see how the second gray column is the compliance number that the state gives to us as a district, and then what we have reported over the years. We report that in late fall each year, so we're really about the task of computing the FON for this current year. We wait till all the contracts are in. You know, we have some late start courses, but these are full-time faculty. We're counting full-time faculty, not the part-time. So in your budget booklets, and these are also online for those of you in the audience that would like to look at those. In your budget booklets, you'll see the budgets that we set up. I'm going to jump to that right now. Let's see here. Okay. On pages 4, 5, and 6, I have the general fund with the notes to the general fund. We have both the unrestricted and the restricted. The state asks us now to report those two components of the general fund separately on that 311Q that we share with you folks quarterly and have you approve. So basically what you're seeing is our state apportionment. We call it computational revenue. That is made up from the full-time equivalent students that we serve. 91,273,000, and then we have total revenue, which includes that state apportionment and all those categoricals that I was sharing with you, as well as special programs and any other restricted funds of 142,358,000. Expenditures, including the restricted fund, are at 143,722,000, and the ending balance that we carried forward or that we rolled in at year end is 17,636,000. And you can see the composition of the ending balance. We have 9.7 million in reserve. That's the 10% reserve on unrestricted general fund expenditures, not including transfers, not including one-time funding sources. We have a contingency of 2.321 million. We have an undesignated carryover of 3.048. And we have restricted funds of 2.56. The state apportionment increased by COLA and restoration. As I mentioned, these again are in your booklet on pages 4, 5, and 6 in column 3. These are the COLA amounts that are included in the state apportionment, as well as that base increase for YCCD. So we have $2.6 million in there. We don't plan on growing, as I mentioned, but we do plan on restoring, and I have this at the bottom, 1,151 FTEs. This is the number of FTEs that we are in stability funding for the year just ended. What that means is once a district goes into stability funding, the state does not take that revenue back in the year that you go into stability. Our year would have been the year ended June 30 of 17. We're in 17-18 now, so it's critical that we address this 1,151. It generates apportionment to just under $6 million. It's about $5.7 million. So we have been focusing on that 1,151 FTEs. And like I said, we didn't lose cash in the year just ended, but we could if we don't make that back up. And that's why I've been saying we're not planning on growing, because we first need to make up these FTEs, make up that revenue that will be a shortfall. I shouldn't say will. I need to be way more optimistic. Could be a shortfall at the end of June 30, 18. The colleges have plans. We've had many, many meetings addressing the rolling. You've heard us talk about rolling FTEs. Well, for several years, we've been rolling just to keep even. And the decision was made this year by the colleges and the district administration. Let's just stop this rolling. It keeps compounding. Let's move all those FTEs as allowed by the state into 17-18 fiscal year, and just focus on fall, spring, and summer. We're hearing, or we're seeing, and not just hearing, summer was strong for both colleges. We're still bringing in the FTEs for fall, and then, of course, for spring, we'll have those.
I know you've told us that there are a lot of districts in the state that are in a similar situation with stability, just as we are. So this would be, if we're not growing, which you just said we're not, and we haven't seen any real growth, this would be for fiscal year 18-19 if we were to take a hit from the state, correct?
Most likely. We feel strongly that by pushing the 1,151 into 17-18, and with a strong summer and with the fall and spring, that we should be able to break even. We could be short. I mean, we could be. We just don't know. It's early to tell. Where the real challenge will be the subsequent year, because we will have already taken the FTEs, moved them into the year we're in, 17-18. So 18-19, the planning will have to address those FTEs. If the colleges want to add to that, I believe that that is the plan with this movement of FTEs into 17-18. Right. But you're right, many districts in the state in the current year are in stability. There's a few growing, but really not very many. So
we could be conceivably, I mean, I don't think, I mean, the college presidents would know better than I, but given our trend, do you really see any hope of making up the entire 1,151 FTEs during the period we need to? I know we'll get a portion of that number.
Well, both colleges, I think, are approaching this and with a strategic plan. I'm not going to step out and say yes, but we are still, we have CCAP agreements in place, and we have yet to see what the ultimate impact of those will be. And at Columbia, we also now are, we've been for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, offering classes at the prison. They've asked us to expand on that, and also doing some both Gen Ed and CTE classes out at the fire camps. And so we have 3 different locations now, And all of those classes are full because, you know, the prisoners are required to engage in some activity after the training. So, you know, we are hopeful that that we'll see, you know, it's not going to be a huge spike. Let me look at Brian now to see if I missed anything. Am I doing okay?
It sounds like it's all on you, Brian, so. Yeah.
He's leading the charge, along with Brandon, who has been awesome. Once all of those enrollments are, because the prison enrollments are added late, even though the students are in classes now, because the process that we have to use to get them into the system. I am very hopeful that we're going to get where we need to go. It was encouraging over the summer. Right now, though, for the fall, we are below where we were last year. So we're almost, but only, I calculate it's like about 17 difference. So, and we're pretty confident that we're going to pick that up.
So we too have a very multifaceted plan. And many of the things Angie talked about we're doing, we're saying, why don't we launch more of this CCAP work in the spring? Why are we waiting until next fall? So we've got efforts in that area. But we also have invested in a new technology tool that is providing some data analytics on our schedule. And today I saw the first, and we also now have a dean of instruction who has some time and capacity to look at the schedule holistically instead of from a division or department perspective. And I really think that that's where we have some opportunities to further on the margins make an impact. And so through the analytics, we identified 25 sections to add to our schedule online, which is pretty exciting to have that based upon what powerful processing tools and not just a gut or history of people being in the seat. And so I think that is going to be very helpful to us, and really having that institutional look that because of the size of our schedule, it's just impossible to have without some additional technology pieces. So, but really what we're seeing is unmet demand online and then always in science and math.
So, given the two of you and your vice presidents or the subject matter experts in this, at what point in the year next year can we kind of see enough data to get an idea where we're going to be at? What do you think?
Well, the challenge is that the size of MJC, I know we can hit the target, but I cannot maintain the efficiency. And
Right.
we have not been willing to reduce our efficiency and the productivity of what we schedule.
Nor do we
So
want you to do that, right?
There's really, I would say, almost no risk that we wouldn't hit the target. And we, even at College Council, not only look at MJC, but we look at Columbia as well, because we know if there's a natural disaster, and you've had a few of them that have canceled class since you've been here, or whatever it might be that could impact their schedule, we would need to be able to cover that in a sense as well. There's that possibility. And so we can do that. I'm just not ready to say we're going to do it in a way that's inefficient.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, nor do we want you.
So that's why I'm really pleased with even this first go round of having some suggestions that came out of the technology.
Okay, thank you. Again, in your booklets, in the budget booklet, I've already mentioned these new costs to the budget. And I wanted to note the last bullet is our contribution to the retiree liability fund. The retiree liability fund is the trust that we've set out outside of the district funds to fund benefits for retirees, depending on when they began working for the Yosemite Community College District, the age limit changes. but we are up to over $30 million in that fund. We are undergoing an actuarial study right now, and so we'll know how close we are, but we're very darn close to fully funding the outstanding liability. Now, we still continue to fund on an annual basis the current cost, we call it the normal cost for all active employees. But that transfer, we're hoping, will free up, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but once that transfer and we're fully funded in the trust, then that will free up $1 million in the general ongoing fund. We're looking forward to that day. I'm going to move over to the FTEs. We had a nice conversation about that. This just gives you a visual of where we have been over the last couple of years. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we've stayed pretty flat. So we haven't brought new growth revenue into the district, but we hadn't gone into decline until this year, or it's stability funding. And then you'll see how the column 4 is what we finally reported for 16-17, and that demonstrates that dip of 1,151. Here's a chart of our full-time equivalent students, again, showing how we've declined, but you will, the newer board members, for your benefit, there was a time back in, I believe it was 09, 10, you could see then the dip to 10, 11. The state actually defunded FTE statewide. That's when we were in the recession. And so for the first time ever in our system, the state looked at all of California community colleges and actually took revenue away and reduced our FTEs. So some of these valleys are not a function of us just not offering the right courses, bringing in the right students, providing the access. It had to do directly with the state reducing what they would pay us. Over the last few years, this chart shows what the YCCD's growth rate was and what we earned. And as we've mentioned, we haven't earned any new growth, but you'll see that over the last, since 14-15, what the state would have allocated to us, were we able to grow, would have been a little over $6 million. There are other districts in the state that have gone as long as we have without growth. And as you asked Darren Gerhardt, that we are not alone in this current year. We are just simply not alone. It's a struggle. This chart just shows you our unrestricted revenue history. And then a pie chart of that. And our total computational revenue. I'll just spend a minute on that. When we talk about total computational revenue, and I say state apportionment, and we're funded so much per FTE, the way the state funds that is by these 4 sources. We generate enrollment fees, we generate local property taxes, which is the biggest piece of our pie. 50% of our money comes from property taxes. And then during the recession, there was this bailout, and that's the Educational Protection Act, and that's our $12 million. So the pie for computational revenue has gotten more complicated and a little more risky, because if all these pieces don't materialize, the state then applies a deficit to state apportionment. So far, we're funded pretty closely to 100% in the categories, and we don't see any huge dips. I was at a meeting last Friday, and the state's looking pretty positive, the state chancellor's office, at the revenue that's coming into the state. We have had several years towards the end of the year that the state will apply a deficit to state apportionment in quite a sizable amount. We're not looking at that in this current year. This pie chart shows you the unrestricted general fund budget for 2017-18 and how it breaks out in the major object codes. And by that I mean the major salary accounts, the major fringe benefit accounts, operations, and supplies. And then we break it down for Modesto Junior College, Columbia College, and the central office. Keep in mind the central office holds the budgets that, the utility budgets. We have all the legal budgets. We have facility operations, transportation. So the central office budget covers the cost for MJC and Columbia and Central Services out of that pot. And we do track it when we look at detailed budget reports and expenditure reports. We do track as close as possible, as an example, utilities for both colleges. It's a little more difficult here on West Campus because we're kind of all combined. But now with our new building, we're working towards being able to really isolate all the different costs. But just because those budgets do not reside in the college budgets, we do track within the central services accounting system and budgeting system costs associated to the two colleges. In addition to this, before I go to questions, in the booklet, you also have the capital projects fund budget and the general obligation fund budget. We reviewed those at tentative. They haven't changed dramatically, if really at all, other than bringing ending balances forward. We do bring that GO bond budget to you folks every month, as well as to our CBOC on a quarterly basis. And so those are in there for your approval as well. I don't have slides on those. We have several notes that tie back to each of the line items for those. So if I could entertain any questions to the general fund budget or the other two that are in the budget document.
I think we asked the questions during your presentation, so thank you very much, Teresa. At this time, I'd like to conduct a public hearing regarding the 2017-2018 final budget for the Yosemite Community College District. Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing. And if anyone in the public would like to come ask a question or make a comment, identify yourself. And I will close the public hearing. And I request a motion from the board to adopt our final budget and authorize staff to prepare and file the necessary financial and budget report.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Abe Rojas and seconded by Darren Garrett. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no. Okay, the motion has carried. We'll move to 7.3.
So Chair DeMartini, Board of Trustees, each quarter we bring to you the 311Q. We call it the 311Q. The fourth quarter report, and our controller who is here with us tonight, we have several discussions about this, why the state even requires a fourth quarter report, because basically what we're presenting to you in the final budget includes the fourth quarter report for all the actuals. But nonetheless, we do prepare it for the state and for you to approve. And basically, it just mirrors the actual transactions, both in revenue and expenditures for the unrestricted general fund for the prior year. That's the fourth quarter for the prior year. So we would ask that you approve it and direct staff to file it with the appropriate agencies.
Before we do that, it says that I'm to conduct a public hearing. Is that normal? Okay. I'm going to open this public hearing. I need the little da-dee-da. Okay, no comments. Thank you. I'll close the public hearing and request a motion to direct staff to submit a copy of the report to the California Community College Chancellor's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Darren Garrett and seconded by John Rodriguez. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The motion has carried. And we will move to 7.4. Actually, one I'm anxious to hear more about, the Columbia College naming proposal for recognition of a major donor. So I assume, Angie, you're going to take this one? All right, great.
Our foundation has received, I think I reported earlier, we actually received the funding now. $2.2 million from the Wise Family Charitable Trust. The family had interest in closing out the trust, and the remaining daughter decided that she wanted to carry on her parents' wishes, and that was to make sure that the college got the residual amount after they took care of some other agencies that they'd contributed to over the years. This is a really interesting story. There are two long-standing families in Tuolumne County, the Brady family and the Wise family. Don Brady was one of the earlier trustees at the time when Columbia College was established, and his family has contributed to the college over the years, and they were the supporters of the oral history project. And then the other family was the Wise family. That was John and Millie Wise, and the family was engaged. In fact, I heard that John Wise ran against Don Brady for the trustee seat.
Oh, really?
So, and so both these families have been longtime supporters of the college. When Don passed away, when John passed away, the families were friends. Don Brady and Millie Wise got married, and combined the resources, and so they had an ongoing commitment through their children to make sure that the college was supported, and so we received this wonderful gift. We'd worked. Both of the foundation directors had worked on drafting a naming policy because we didn't have one. The board approved that some time ago. We followed that policy, and our foundation, I asked them to come up with a proposal of what might be a suitable naming opportunity to recognize this. This is the largest gift that the college has ever received. And so the proposal is to name the outside patio of the Tamarack building, which is the library. Lovely space overlooking the San Diego Reservoir, the Brady Wise family plaza. And so we would like to do that and have a dedication next year as part of our 50th anniversary.
Madam Chairman, this may require a little discussion. We faced this issue about a year ago, naming rights to buildings, and I think we asked the MJC Foundation to make a recommendation. I don't know if they've done that, but the issue is, are we going to have a single policy for the district, or is each foundation going to go their own way? That,
I believe that we actually adopted a board policy
Did we?
for naming district-wide. I don't have that. Connie, can I impose on you? Can you
And both of
speak
the
to this?
foundation directors did work on bringing it together to bring forward
To bring forward the recommendation that finally got to the board that we approved. Do you just
Normally,
remind us?
normally the policy had been that we named it after something that reference to Yosemite.
No, that's.
I don't want to quibble about a $2 million contribution. My sense is take the money and run.
So my recollection from last year, I don't have the policy in front of me, is that the board was brought a policy recommended through the constituent review process. The board did approve the policy. They had the procedure for information. And then both foundations were going to go back and do their own document on, what were the levels of naming and what were the opportunities for naming, like benches versus trees versus patios, that kind of thing. So we do have a district-wide policy and procedure, and then each college foundation has their own levels of giving and areas to name.
Okay, that covers it then.
So it covers.
Yeah, thank you, Connie. And the name of the building is still Tamarack. It's just a portion of it. I personally am extremely excited about this proposal, and I would love to see one of the things is that sometimes requests for naming get involved with emotions because someone has passed away or something, and this is someone who's passed away, but we're not acting on emotions. And this, to me, ought to be, when someone comes with a proposal for naming, just pulling this out of the minutes, as I hope that it will be approved, would be a very good sample and model of what we hopefully had in mind. I mean, to be honest, something for a $2.2 million, we could rename the the whole building, and they're just asking for patio. So I think it's fabulous, and I hope someone would like to move the recommendation.
Oh, probably shouldn't be you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to move that we approve the Grady Wise Family Plaza name for the area outside of Tamarack.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other comments? I'd just like to say that it is with tremendous gratitude that we undertake this naming experience. That's how I feel. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no.
And I just want to add, Angie, thank you for your information. It made it very easy.
Motion carried.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's really wonderful, and
I would hope that someday, before I retire, that we would figure out some type of a name for the new ag facility out there, because I have comments almost every day about.
but we need the 2.2 million donor. That's what we're waiting on.
I think we need about 5 times that amount to
Okay.
put their name
The
on.
10 million. All right.
No, I don't have that much money.
But you have influence in the community. You can talk to those people that do have it. Well, all right, let's move to 7.5, the board policy, second reading. We'll ask Connie to come up again.
Thank you. Good evening. So tonight we're looking at a second read on policy 6300, fiscal management. This came to the board a couple months back, and then the board policy committee recommended to defer it to the board finance committee. I'm getting all the names right, to the board finance committee to have a review and see if they had any additional comments or recommendations. That process occurred. The board finance committee brought it back to the board policy committee with no additional recommendations or comments. And so now we're bringing it back to the full board for consideration of approval.
Right, and it was the recommendation of the policy committee on Monday that the board adopt this. This is our recommendation. Are there any?
As is presented here?
Yes.
Well, I, for one, still oppose that, so.
Okay, what?
And I gave my reason.
Well, no, Abe, we're talking on the fiscal management policy, 6300.
Oh, I'm sorry. I went ahead.
It's the second reading on 7.5. It's on the same, yeah, it's in the same page as the naming proposal. So, questions or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by John Rodriguez and seconded by Darren Garrett that the board adopt the second reading of fiscal management policy 6300. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion has carried. Okay, now we'll move over to the next green page for subject 7.6, the board policy third reading.
So as Chair DeMartini indicated, we had a meeting on Monday with the Board Policy Committee. And let me tell you that that meeting lasted about an hour and a half. So if I leave something out or forget something really relevant, you three trustees who were there, just jump in and let me know. With 7400 travel from last month, we had a pretty lengthy discussion here at the board meeting. And so those changes have been put in here for your consideration, and that starts on, let's see, line 10. And the chancellor shall establish procedures. So we have, line 16 is what we're looking at. All travel outside California must be approved in advance by the board unless the timing is such that the individual or district will be adversely affected. And one additional recommendation for revision came forward in that line 17. Rather than saying individual, we want to say individuals with the S in a parentheses at the end.
And that was approved by the three members of this committee.
So that is recommended, now the board policy committee is recommending approval to the full board, that you would consider that for approval. And the other thing that I recall that came up from that discussion is that trustees are still looking forward to receiving the expense reports, right? We have a report that's coming to you for out-of-state travel, and then we're also looking at continuing those monthly expense reports to you.
And yes, that's line 25, Abe.
That is line 25, and that is an existing part of the policy that talks about the board receiving monthly expense reports.
And one thing that was said at the policy committee meeting by me was that it got kind of hot last week, and so I said, let's bring it back. I really probably should not have done that because I was hoping there would be inspiration or something occur in the following month that would allow someone to come up with a great way to give the board the travel information that we're looking for. But until we really get the technology, which is you have a RFP out for. So it's not going to be quite what we want, but it will be there eventually. But we still would like the what you can do, the push the button with the legend. We'd still like that monthly.
In the board agendas?
No, just
We could provide it when you come and review the travel requests.
Yeah.
that, or no, or you can just email it to the board or send it hard copy.
So what we're doing right now is taking quotes, not RFPs per se.
Actually, we received them, we evaluated them, and we're ready to work on contract language and move forward. So, and then look at all the components. And as Sarah Schrader shared with our subcommittee, it's an enterprise endeavor. So we're not only addressing fiscal and travel, we're including folks from across the district and the colleges. So it will take longer than December. One of our top priorities is to get moving on the travel requests and the paper movement, but the process of RFP is complete. So we're ready to start moving forward.
Thank you.
So in my opinion, there's no need for that, to put that in there since we're having that information already going to be provided to us.
Well, what we had provided to date, and I ran for Leslie Beggs and for Andy Martini, is our financial reports, and the way that colleague provides reporting isn't to the level and degree that some of the board members would like to see. As an example, it won't give names, it won't say where they're going. So what this new software project that we're working on will provide that information, but currently we don't have that. And so some of the board members have been coming in on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, going through the travel folder,
monthly,
just getting familiar with how we operate. We will eventually have it, and that's what we want to be very clear. We don't have that now in a format that really meets the needs of some of the board. So we will have it, but we just don't have it right now.
But we're in the process of doing that, though.
They're working towards it, yeah.
Working towards that to try to get it accomplished. So we're
We
kind
will
of
get
putting
there.
it,
We're very optimistic.
putting the cart ahead of the horse, as far as I'm concerned.
Are you talking about 24 and 25? That's been existing for how long?
I'm talking about the
15 years.
Yeah, it's been there
whole
for,
policy that it comes to the board. I don't agree that it should come to the board. That we have a process in which we have steps which cover our process in developing all these travel expenses. So, once again, I say that, we hire people to do these jobs and we pay a good salary to do that, and yet we come back and we kind of try to micromanage, and I don't agree with that. So I would oppose this particular policy the way it reads.
okay. The only thing we're voting on today in adopting the policy is changing the word individual to putting an S in parentheses, because we took a vote last month on the other part.
I believe that this was pulled last month. We voted.
We voted on the first part.
We voted on the intention, and the secretary or recorder can correct me, but I believe that we voted on the intention.
We took a vote on whether on line 16 was voted on last month.
That motion passed.
That motion passed, and on line 16, that was voted on last month and passed. So the only addition, I was hoping, I should not have pulled it, okay? I should have just voted on it, and then we would have missed the individual with the S, which Lynn caught. But I was hoping that maybe there I could think of something, finance could think of something, but we can't, so I don't think it's an idea to change that. So I'd appreciate a motion to adopt with the correction of individual to possibility, it's slash.
I will
plural.
so move.
Okay, it's been moved by Leslie Beggs, and I'll second that. Okay, all those in favor of adopting the travel policy as amended, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
Okay, the motion has carried. Jan, do you need a show of hands or a roll call?
Just marking these individually. It is the only one.
That's correct. Okay, thank you. And we have pulled the whistleblower protection for next month.
I believe that was the recommendation.
That was the recommendation. Okay.
So the recommendation of the committee now goes forward to, just as a matter of getting the minutes and all of that correct. The recommendation from the board policy committee is to pull the whistleblower from consideration of the board this month, with the idea that we know that our policies and procedures are in legal compliance. We had a couple of attorneys come and work with us at the board policy committee on Monday, so we know that to be the case. But we will be looking at some training on implementation of our board policies and procedures related to due process. And so we'll do that training. And as part of that training, perhaps we may find areas in those policies that could be clarified. So I hadn't heard that we would pull it to next month. I heard that we would pull it pending that training.
I would stand corrected with what you said, Connie. That's correct.
Thank you.
Maybe next month, but maybe not.
And that leads me to, just before you vote, the news is I just want to give a sincere commendation to the board and let you all know that you have gone through all of the policies from last year and reviewed them. So that's a pretty big feat. And so we don't have any in the queue right now until district council meets again. So we will not have any new policies for you in October and potentially in November, depending on how we move forward in district council. So good job. And if whistleblower comes, well, if whistleblower comes forward next month, you'll see me. If not, you'll see me in November, December.
I would like to request, I would like you to send me a email or whatever, of the members of the policy committee.
Yes, sir.
All right.
There are two committees that I refer to. The first is the Board Policy Standing Committee, and that is, and I'll send you an email to document that, but it's Trustee Martin, Chair DeMartini, and Trustee Baggs. And then we have separately a Constituent Review Committee made up of
I know what
district personnel. Okay.
I would like the names of the policy committee because.
Yes.
Just because.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Connie, so much. I appreciate your summarizing that. We'll move on to 7.7, which is appoint a board member to serve on the MJC Foundation. We are required by our auditors that we have one board member on our foundations. We have 3 foundations. Lynn serves on the Columbia College Foundation. I serve on the Great Valley Museum Foundation. Don was serving on the MJC Foundation, but he has requested that we find a new member. So according to my math, it means it could be one of the 4 of the other trustees. It would be best if someone would volunteer. So kind of like the public hearing. Does anyone want to volunteer? Okay. Don, do you have any one that you would like to recommend serve? Don? Leslie, sit back. Don, do you have anyone you'd like to recommend serve on the committee? Or
No, I don't. I think it's a good committee. I enjoyed being there. I just physically can't make all the meetings. So I think I should be replaced.
no, that's fine. I understand that. All right, Henry, help me out here. What would you do if you were the board chair? All right. Shall we do that? I like that idea. I'm already serving on one what? We only have, no, one committee, but I am on the Great Valley Museum. I took your place on that when you didn't want to do it anymore. Remember?
How often does the Modesto JC Foundation meet? That might help.
Once every 2 months is my understanding. Is that right, Don?
Every other month, about, yeah.
When?
It meets on the Tuesday before the board meeting or not?
I don't remember their schedule.
It's the Tuesday before.
Well, we could try this. Why don't you attend their next meeting? We'll appoint you as the interim board representative, and then if it works out for you, then we could make you the permanent.
They're a welcoming group. You like them.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Leslie. So at this time, I would like to appoint Leslie Beggs to be the, John B., permanent or interim?
Interim.
Interim board representative to the MJC Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yay. The next item is 7.8, the board's special priorities. And we had a special meeting for board special priorities, but we had 2 trustees that couldn't attend, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to weigh in on this. These 4 priorities were agreed upon by everyone who was there. We could have actually taken a vote. I didn't call for it, so I guess you could blame it on me. But the special priorities for 2017-2018 are what you have attached to your agenda. Is there any discussion, or do we just want to go ahead and adopt them?
They look good.
Second.
Okay, so Lynn says they look good, and I heard someone say second, but I didn't hear a motion.
Oh, I thought.
You thought Lynn did?
I thought Lynn did.
Lynn, should we make that a motion that we adopt them?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, it's been moved by Lynn Martin and seconded by Abe Rojas that the board adopt the special priorities that they devised at their special meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. The motion has carried. And now that we are at 8.1, comments from the board. So time to report on things that, meetings you've attended or events that you have done, or anything that you would like to see on future agendas. John, can we start with you? Would that be all right?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of attending the MJC Institute Day on the 25th of last month. That was a very nice event.
Thank you. Lynn?
I attended the policy and procedure meeting last Monday and the reception for Chancellor Young and his family at Chair DeMartini's home, and thank you very much. That was lovely. And I met with Dr. Fairchilds, and I was really sorry to miss the Institute and actually, the one thing that I missed the most was the MJC breakfast with the classified staff. That's the first time I've missed in my 7 years, so I will be there next year. But the reason that I missed all those things was I was on a road trip and got to see the total solar eclipse.
Oh.
And it only lasted for a little minute or so, so it was a big, long trip for not a whole long time.
Did you get to see it like 100%?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it was really quite an event.
wow, I'm jealous. That's great.
Do you have it on your schedule to attend the next one?
I'm not going to Mexico, but there seems to be one in Arkansas in 2024, and that's a little closer for me. You know, and they said it was going to be life-changing, and I don't think that.
Well, it could if you stick around for the next one. Could be life-changing.
Darren, I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
So I too was at the reception for Chancellor Young and his family at the DeMartinis, and I want to thank Ann and Jim and everyone that brought food and participated in that. Abe, you're not allowed to bring that food anymore. It's very addictive, but thank you. I attended the Board Finance Committee meeting. I attended the pre-meeting with the Chancellor. I attended the Major E-Bond Oversight Committee meeting. Post-meeting with the Chancellor, Board Priorities, a special session. And I'm saving this one because it was the funnest of them all. And that is the Institute Day at Modesto Junior College. And I want to give a big kudos to President Jill Stearns and to Catherine Pritchard. She left, but I'll say what I have to say. I expect to see both of you at some point in the future at an MJC theater presentation, because I think you're missing something there. You could be a comedy act troupe. Take it on the road. So anyway, it was a good time meeting everybody, and thank you all very much. That's all I have.
Okay, Leslie?
Okay. So since the last board meeting, I went to the welcome reception for Chancellor Young, hosted by our chair, Trustee DeMartini. I went to the MJC Scholarship Awards ceremony.